I'm Katy Cowan, and this is the Creative Boom Podcast. This week's guest is Dyneisha Gross, an American graphic designer based in Washington, D.C., currently working at Ogilvy, one of the most respected creative agencies in the world. Gosh, nearly the end of 2022. Another challenging year. How have you been? How have you found it?
Oh, I've been great. I think lots of new things are happening. Lots of exciting things are happening. In comparison to like what 2020 was in 2021 even, moving through a pandemic, graduating through a pandemic. It was very scary and we love this word, uncertain, but we're doing great.
Uncertain probably is the word of 2020, and 2021 was probably, from my point of view, hopeful.
Yeah.
And then if that's the case, what does the word that encompasses everything that's happened so far this year, what would you say?
I don't have a word, but I do have a quote.
Ooh, nice.
Be afraid and do it anyway. 1,000%. I have no idea what word that would be. Yeah, but it's like that moment of pessimism that I usually embody before doing absolutely anything. And then the optimism that comes with it when it's going right, it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of good at this.
I love that.
So be absolutely terrified and do it anyway.
Yeah, I think the last couple of years has definitely put us through our paces, and it's taught us a lot, hasn't it? It's like made us realise we're made of strong stuff, actually.
Yeah. Strong, but then also it's okay to not have it all together. And I think we've shown each other that we can fall apart and bounce back, and we don't have to do it alone, even if the person can't be in the room with you. So
I don't know where you were during the sort of pandemic. By the looks of things, you were just finishing your final year of university. Did you find it a challenging time, or are you a bit of a home bird anyway and embrace those lockdowns?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I think I went to a very untraditional college or university. It was 250 to 260 students total, and we were close-knit. Everyone knew everyone. We all kind of worked with each other. If we had a question about something we were creating, we could find someone 2 feet away. And so for us to stare at each other and say, see you next week, and then go home, and we haven't seen each other for months, and then we don't graduate, like, in the same room, was terrifying. So you saw like your friends who moved back to where they were from or are now on the computer go from super excited about being at school every day to super exhausted about being on the computer every day. So yeah, it was a big shift and change, but I think we all kind of bounced back and found our way out of that space.
And you yourself are doing very well. You're now working for Ogilvy.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Very exciting. Yeah, I think it took me a while. I will say the journey from college to where I am today was different. I moved back home, which was something I hadn't done in 4 years. Moving to college, I lived in an apartment by myself with no roommates after freshman year. And so moving back home and being around my family, it was like I forgot how to people. And then I sort of kind of like moved into Lancaster again. I went to a school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I got a job at a nonprofit working with students in underprivileged communities, which was amazing, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And so Ogilvy recruiter reached out, and I was like, this is a yes, 1,000%. And so now I'm in advertising, and I'm doing what I love, which is making a difference, but then also working with these amazing brands to create messaging and speak to people. So
that sounds incredible. And you actually got approached.
Mm-hmm.
You actually got approached by somebody from the agency.
Yes, the power of passion projects and updating that portfolio constantly is really important. And I didn't know it until then. So
that's amazing. Because when we're looking at your sort of social media channels, you seem to be spreading a lot of really gorgeous positive messages, which I assume are lessons you've learned yourself. So things like you are magic, speak highly of yourself, all in your beautiful typography. And that is what got your attention. That's what got the attention.
Yeah, it was sort of a therapy for me getting out of getting into the pandemic and being alone most of the time. It felt like a lot of people were a little bit more optimistic about what tomorrow would look like. And so it was like, okay, I need these words of affirmation for myself. Let's letter them in Procreate and then post them for other people to feel or get a sense of, hi, I see you and there's something valuable about you. Keep going. And so for me, it was like, let's doodle and do a little bit of therapy. But for other people, it was thank you for sending this, which then transformed into greeting cards and all these other cool little projects that I got to work on, sharing messages.
Side projects are so important. I know this myself. Creative Beam was a side project initially. It opens doors. It starts conversations, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It's a good, like, icebreaker, too. It's like, what do you do for a living? You tell them what you do for a living, and they're like, well, what do you do for fun? I make cards. And they're like, what? So.
And so you are magic, which is going back to your Instagram. Is that something you have to remind yourself of a lot of the time?
All the time. So I have these huge mirrors in my bathroom, and I just recently started writing affirmations for myself on them. Just telling myself you are beautiful, you are magic, just reminding myself that when I look in the mirror, these are things that I should be remembering.
And speak highly of yourself. That's so lovely. We forget to do it. We really do.
1,000%. When you're in a room, it's easy for you to talk about other people, but as soon as people ask you to write about yourself, it's like, I don't know. So speaking highly of yourself is really important, even if you have to practice alone in a room.
Absolutely. Practicing is key, and getting your pitch right, so that next time somebody asks you what you do, you can say something a bit more interesting rather than just saying, I'm a designer, or I'm an illustrator, or, I run a platform for creatives. You can say something, a little bit more that reveals your personality or what you're passionate about, and be proud of it as well. I mean, is this a kind of British thing? Where we just feel a little bit embarrassed about talking about our accomplishments? I always get the impression that in America, you Americans are brought up to be way more kind of confident and comfortable talking about your achievements.
I really think it depends on the person and how you were brought up, because confidence for me was hard. It was like very hard for me to talk about anything I accomplished. I didn't want to tell any family members that I did something great. I wasn't like in the business of telling people, hi, I won this award. It was like me downplaying, and I still do it. And my coworkers sometimes will be like, why are you downplaying how great you are? And it's like, ugh. So I still struggle with that. I think there are lots of people out there that are super confident and like, oh, good for you. But like, meanwhile, I'm a pile of poo-poo. So it's like, it's day by day.
Yeah, I mean, we are prone to putting ourselves down, and I'm not sure where it comes from. It's the voices that we might pick up on subconsciously, whether it's somebody, maybe like a teacher that said we couldn't do art, or maybe like maybe even someone in the family saying that art wasn't a serious subject, or maybe even a friend saying you weren't good enough. And it's you don't really know where the voice comes from, but it is there, and it's just reminding yourself that isn't something that has power over you.
Yeah, I think oh my goodness, it was like the evolution of social media, where you were watching other people's lives to compare yours to theirs, but then also the little experiences of like words that you needed from someone that weren't the words that you actually got. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the times the stigma is creatives don't make money. I'm very much not hungry. I'm very much making things, and I'm happier than a lot of people can say, right? So it's just a matter of remembering that those voices are there. They will exist, but we can always overpower them and tell them we're great and keep going.
Exactly. I love this. This is great. I'm going to come away from this full of joy and bounding around the house, feeling better about myself. But yeah, definitely. But you've kept smiling, and you seem to find the silver linings in life, and you kind of have this energy that you share on your sort of TikTok, and I think that's also on your Instagram, isn't it? And it's just wonderful. Do you get any feedback from other creatives out there when you're sharing these things? Do you feel like that you might get messages sometimes saying, oh, thanks, I really needed to hear that today?
Yeah, so oh my goodness, I am not great at making friends. But Instagram and TikTok, I do listen. Instagram and TikTok, though, have made it easier for me to message with people and be like, I love the work that you do. I would love to work with you one day, or let's collaborate on a thing. But I do sometimes get messages that are like, I have no idea where you got this energy from, but I needed that. And a lot of people will comment. So for me, it's like TikTok became this place for me to be 110% myself. Like I did a series for Christmas or it was before Christmas on, the 36 Days of Type, and I bombed, and people loved it, and I was like, why? Like, I'm struggling. But
I love the honesty.
Yeah, I ruined, I think, like, the B and the G, and I quit halfway through, but people were so excited to see that I was sharing the failures as well as, like, the successes, and they were giving me suggestions and telling me, listen, I needed this because I've been feeling like this for a long time. So, yeah, social media has become, like, a little bit of a friend, but also a platform for me to be myself and give people the realness that a lot of other people probably aren't giving. So,
yeah, it's really interesting to see how Instagram shifted over the years. Like it started off quite sort of laid back, remember those like really kind of naive filters that we'd put on and like the little kind of white frames around images and things like that. And they all looked really naff. And then we all started weirdly doing this typical human thing where everything had to become perfect. We had to present our best selves, our best life, and all the kind of, food shots and the beautiful building shots and the kind of, what is it with you creatives standing next to a beautiful, colourful wall, but you won't look at the camera, you'll just stare off to the side. I'm like, why are you all so goddamn cool? Sorry for swearing.
It's
so
true.
But now it's come full circle and people are like, have you seen this phenomenon where like women and men are just sort of putting their hair like that and going, and they're just really
goodness.
not perfect at all.
I've actually been on a social media break.
Deliberate.
And yeah, I've been on a social media break and I have been missing everything from the music to the trends to all of that. But I feel like, yes, we were using Instagram as this new curator tool where we only posted the really good stuff and it had to follow really good images. And so it was like all black and white for a while. And then it was like add a dash of color, or it was like all one color and one shade. And I got tired of like trying to figure out how to do it. So I was like, forget this. Yes. I'm just going to post what I like. And I feel like when you have a style or you just are excited about posting, it doesn't matter. People are going to see your posts anyway. But TikTok was like, absolutely, I'm going to wear my pajamas and make this video. And people are going to like it. So
love it. Yeah, I think it's just really nice to see the real people. After all that kind of like, presenting the best possible image, I think people are craving just a bit of normality.
Yeah.
Anyway, you went to Cannes last summer. What was that like?
I did. So my job actually, Ogilvy, paid for employees to go, and there was a program that I was put in. Shout out to Adrienne Smith. She created a program called Cannes Diversity Collective. For Black creatives and creatives of color all over the world to come together and be at Cannes.
Right.
Now, the important part about this is Cannes is not the most diverse place in the world, right? We're still kind of coming to a place where people feel like they belong in these spaces. People dress up, people wear hot summer outfits, and people are winning awards. But the most important part is that there's no Black representation at these events. There's no people of color coming to have conversations. And so I think with the turn of the pandemic, there were a lot of conversations about how we can make space at the table. And truthfully, we don't want space at the table anymore. We want our own table so that we can show you how it's done, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you got there, was that kind of when it hit home that you were sort of working in advertising, helping with better representation? Because it hasn't been very diverse up until this point, has it?
Yeah.
It's only been the last couple of years that, we started to see positive change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, why do you think that is? Why do you think it's not been the case up until now?
I think in the US particularly, because I've learned working on projects with the UK that things are a lot different. In the US, I think there was just this space where they were made for specific people. And so a lot of the times and when I say we, I mean Black people, weren't invited to the table. We didn't have a space. We weren't allowed to have promotions and things. And so a lot of that time we spent trying to fight for a space and fight for like the worthiness of being in these spaces, which is why I do so many of these like lettered things, is fighting to remember that I am worthy to be here.
Yes.
It took us a long time to get there, but it was only because people were being pressured, right, to include Black people, include people of color. No, like the racism and all of that happened in 2020 was the eye-opener for a lot of people. And it shouldn't have taken that long, and we still have a long way to go, but we're moving and getting somewhere.
I think that's what a lot of people take for granted. They don't realize that, you know, a lot of energy is spent on just trying to sort of prove your worth and that you have a voice. Yeah. Essentially.
And women experience that. Oh my goodness. That's why my identities are such a big part. It's like I am fighting for that in three different ways. And so women feel it. The LGBTQ community feels it. Black people feel it. People of color feel it. And so you want to be able to just come to work and show everyone that you do good work without having to prove yourself first.
Exactly. It's a funny thing, this table, this mythical table of dreams, I call it, or the mythical ladder. You know, everybody's scrambling for a place, or everybody's scrambling to the top. Yeah. And there's a lot of self-protectionism going on. And, you know, everybody thinks that there's only certain number of seats. And it's ridiculous. There's enough for everyone. You know, everybody has a say. Everybody has a voice. That's something, yeah, I'm very much proud of with Creative Boom and just, yeah, everything we do. So I saw on Instagram that it kind of like represented a turning point for you going to Cannes, as in, you know, you were sort of saying yes to opportunities that you might have otherwise turned down out of fear, perhaps. And obviously many of us are prone to that, but like it's not easy putting ourselves out of our comfort zone, is it?
Yeah, it's the scariest thing in the world. It's like very terrifying to be vulnerable a lot of the time because you don't know what the outcome is. And I've noticed as a creative, I'm very calculated and I want to know. And so I'm less experimental where I was prior to Cannes. And so, yeah, that happens a lot more than I'd like it to.
Yeah, I know. It's you know, I think it was Debbie Millman I chatted with, and she said it's not about confidence, it's about having courage. And the confidence will be something that fluctuates throughout your life. So that's quite nice to know from Debbie, because if she still sort of has confidence crashes, then I think, you know, all the rest of us are going to be fine too. So what have you learned about yourself since graduating then, apart from realizing that you can go and do these things and you're good at saying yes?
I think, okay, so 2020 taught me that I can't be perfect and things are going to happen and you're allowed to fall. So when you fail forward, right? 2021 was like a reboot. It was like, take the time to figure out who you actually are. Here is the space to do that. And then 2022 was like full of be afraid and do it anyway. And so it was like, you know that you're going to be terrified of this, but if you don't take the leap, you'll never know. And I got kind of tired of missing out on exciting opportunities and not trying new things. And so I opened that door and now things are happening and it's like, holy crap, I could have been doing this 3 years ago, but I was too scared to. So
I know it's frustrating, isn't it, when you realize the time you might have wasted, but you know, you're here, you're doing it, you know, you're just at the start of your career, so much ahead of you.
I've learned since college that number one, I'm good at what I do. Number two, I'm worthy enough to be where I am, and 3, I'm allowed to fail and ruin it. Oh, yes. And then start over.
You know, going back to your side venture, which I was thinking, why is she talking about green cards earlier? But it's called 1137, where you basically sell greeting cards with the aim to spread joy, which is fantastic. Yeah. How do you find running that business as well as working full time?
Yeah, the joke. The running joke, right, as a creative is that you work a 9 to 6 and then from 7 to whenever you go to bed is when you run your side business. And But I feel
That's
like
true.
working as a creative, I get little ideas all day. And I'm a big post-it note girl. And so all day long, I'll have like post-it notes across my desk, across the wall that have like these little ideas from something someone said that kind of spark or end up being cards or stickers. So, I mean, it's great. I think for me, it's an outlet that I don't usually have. Because I work in advertising, I'm either working on brand things or I'm working on kind of like making change in the government space. And so the space that I use for myself with greeting cards is like being able to touch stationery, being able to design something that doesn't really have any rules or guidelines. It's whatever I make it. So it's the freedom that you don't usually have, right, in a very disciplined space.
So with social media, everything that's happened this year, Instagram seems to be sort of dying a death. Do you think it's the beginning of the end for these platforms, or do you still think there's something to get out of them?
I think, that's a really good question. Sorry, I like make sound effects all the time. People laugh at me.
I know,
like
I love it.
I think Instagram is one of those ones that you, as a creative, are always concerned about how many people you're going to reach. The algorithm is weird. You have no idea how many people are going to see it. And I still haven't, to this day, figured out how reels work. Because, right, sometimes I'll post a reel after not posting a reel for a month. And then it like blows up, 10,000 plus views. But then on a different day I'll post and it's like 300 views. And I'm like, well, what happened? So I think TikTok, I've seen the biggest, I guess, payback for me is like meeting people, getting freelance work, people finding my stuff on the For You page because I use hashtags. It's easier to reach people. Whereas with Instagram, we're all very skeptical about who the platform is actually for now.